It had been a long night at the office party, and I was ready to head home when my boss approached me with a casual but firm request. "Take my wife home, will you?" he said, patting my shoulder. "I've got some things to handle here." I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to help, but because I barely knew his wife, and the few interactions we'd had were less than pleasant. But saying no wasn't an option. He was my boss, and in my line of work, keeping him happy was just as important as the job itself. I found her standing near the entrance, scrolling through her phone with an air of disinterest. She was stunning, no doubt about that, but the coldness in her expression made her beauty almost intimidating. "My husband is making you my chauffeur for the night?" she asked, barely looking at me. He nodded. "Just making sure you get home safe." He scoffed. "How noble of you." The ride was quiet at first, aside from the hum of the engine and the occasional sigh from her. Then out of nowhere she spoke. "I suppose you're one of those guys who does everything my husband asks without question." Kept my eyes on the road. "He's my boss. It's part of the job." She laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Loyalty or fear?" I didn't answer. She wasn't wrong, there was fear but also ambition. My career was just taking off, and I couldn't afford mistakes. She leaned back, tapping her nails against the window. "You know, he never used to be like this. He used to pay attention." I glanced at her through the rearview mirror. There was something in her tone, resentment, sadness, or maybe both. "Relationships change," I said carefully. She let out a bitter laugh. "That's an understatement." We reached the grand gates of her house. I pulled up the driveway, stopping in front of the entrance. "Thanks for the ride," she said, but she didn't move to get out. Instead, she tilted her head, watching me. "Come inside for a drink." I hesitated. This wasn't part of the job. I should get going. "It's just a drink," she cut in, her voice smooth, almost daring. "Or are you afraid?" She smirked, and for a reason I couldn't explain, that got to me. I should have left. I should have said no. But I didn't. Inside, the house was quiet, almost too quiet for such a massive place. She poured herself a drink, then handed me one without asking what I wanted. "You don't talk much, do you?" she mused, sipping from her glass. "I just don't say things unless I need to," I replied. She walked closer, her eyes studying me. "Interesting. My husband likes men who don't challenge him. He must like you a lot." I tensed at the way she said it, like it was an insult. "I respect him," I said simply. She smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "Respect. That's cute." She moved past me, brushing against my arm as she did. It was subtle, maybe even unintentional, but it sent a jolt through me. I swallowed hard. I should go. She didn't stop me, but as I turned toward the door, she spoke again. "Don't pretend you don't feel it." Froze. "Feel what?" She walked up beside me, her presence suddenly suffocating. "The tension." Clenched my jaw. "I don't know what you're talking about." She laughed softly, setting her glass down on the table. "You do." I turned to leave, but before I reached the door she added, "See you around." I walked out without looking back, my heart pounding. I had done the right thing. I had resisted. But as I drove away, all I could think about was the way she looked at me. And how much I wanted to see her again. I told myself I wouldn't think about her again, but that was a lie. The memory of her voice, her presence, the way she looked at me, it lingered, creeping into my thoughts at the worst times. I tried to brush it off as nothing, a moment of tension I had walked away from. But when my phone lit up with an unknown number later that week, I knew exactly who it was before I even opened the message. Asterisk, "You left too quickly that night." Asterisk. I stared at the screen, debating whether to respond. I shouldn't. There was no reason to. But my fingers moved on their own. Asterisk. I didn't think there was a reason to stay. Asterisk. Seconds later, another message. Asterisk. Maybe you weren't paying attention. Asterisk. Clenched my jaw. She was playing a game. Testing boundaries. And against all logic, I found myself walking straight into it. I told myself it was just curiosity when I replied. that I wasn't actually interested. But soon, the messages turned into late-night conversations. She would text me about her husband's meetings, his absence, how she barely saw him. I told myself I was just listening, that I wasn't encouraging anything. But the night she asked me to come over, I didn't hesitate. The door was already open when I arrived. She stood there, waiting like she had known I would come. "You look tense," she murmured as I stepped inside. I wasn't tense. I was on edge. There was a difference. "Why did you call me here?" I asked. She took a slow sip from her wine glass before answering. "Do I need a reason?" I exhaled sharply. "Yes." She smiled at that. "Maybe I was lonely." I knew what was happening. The line I had convinced myself I wouldn't cross was right in front of me. And yet I didn't leave. "Tell me," she said, tilting her head. "Do you always follow orders so blindly?" I frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" She stepped closer, her fingers grazing my wrist. "You do everything my husband tells you to do. Do you ever think for yourself?" I yanked my hand away. "This isn't about him." "No." She leaned in, close enough that I could smell her perfume. "Then why are you here?" Had no answer. She didn't wait for one. Her lips brushed against mine, and for a second I froze. Every warning sign, every rational thought, screamed at me to stop. But I didn't. The moment I kissed her back, the air shifted. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing. It was reckless, desperate, inevitable. Her hands tangled in my hair as she pulled me deeper into the kiss, her breath uneven. I lifted her against the nearest surface, feeling her legs wrap around me. Every thought of consequences, of right and wrong, disappeared. I wanted her. And I could tell she wanted me just as badly. The night blurred after that. Every touch, every whispered word, every stolen moment, it all burned into my memory. It was intoxicating, dangerous, and I knew it. But I didn't care. When I finally left, the sky was already turning pale with the first hints of morning. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to shake off the weight of what I had just done. My phone buzzed as I sat in my car. Single message. Asterisk, now you understand. Asterisk. I gripped the steering wheel, my chest tight. There was no going back now. I told myself it was a mistake. That it couldn't happen again. But the moment I walked into work the next day, I knew it wasn't over. She had left a mark on me, one I couldn't shake. Every time my phone vibrated, I found myself hoping it was her. Every glance across the office felt like a silent challenge. And when the next message finally came, I didn't even think before answering. Asterisk, same place. Tonight. Asterisk. I should have said no. Instead, I was there before I even realized I had made a decision. The affair took on a life of its own. It wasn't just about the stolen nights or whispered secrets anymore. It was the way she looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered. It was the way she spoke to me like I was someone worth more than just a paycheck. We met in places no one would find us. Hotels with dim lighting and locked doors. Cars parked in empty lots where no one would hear us. The risk only made it more addictive. The fear of getting caught made it impossible to stop. She was reckless. She would send messages while her husband was in the next room. She would brush past me at work when she knew people were watching. She liked the danger. I pretended I did too. But the truth was I was starting to lose control. It wasn't just physical anymore. The lines had blurred. I caught myself thinking about her at work, imagining what she was doing when I wasn't around. And the worst part, I knew she felt the same. One night, as she lay beside me, her fingers tracing patterns on my skin, she whispered, "What if this never ends?" I didn't have an answer. Because deep down I didn't want it to. But reality had other plans. The first close call came when a colleague nearly caught us. I had stepped out of a meeting to check my phone, only to find her waiting in the hallway, a knowing smirk on her lips. "Careful," she murmured, brushing her fingers over my wrist. I pulled away too quickly, too obviously. And I saw the way my coworker's eyes narrowed, the way he filed that moment away for later. Paranoia set in after that. Every look from a colleague felt like suspicion. Every unanswered call from my boss sent a chill down my spine. But stopping wasn't an option. We argued about it once. She said I was getting cold, that I was pulling away. Maybe I was. Maybe I was starting to understand that no matter how much I wanted her, this wasn't a game I could win. But then she would touch me, whisper my name, remind me why I had fallen into this in the first place. And just like that, I was hers again. It was only a matter of time before everything collapsed. I just didn't know how soon it would happen. The tension at work was suffocating. My boss had been watching me differently lately. His usual indifference replaced by something sharper, something suspicious. I told myself it was just my paranoia getting worse, but deep down I knew better. She was getting reckless. The messages were bolder, the meetings riskier. It was only a matter of time before something slipped. And then it did. It was a text, one she had meant for me but sent to the wrong person. Asterisk, I need to see you tonight. Same time. Asterisk. She realized the mistake seconds too late. The message had gone to her husband. Panic surged through me the moment she called. Her voice was tight with fear. He knows. I felt the world tilt beneath me. How much? Enough. Silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken consequences. He hasn't said anything yet, she whispered. But he will. I should have left town that night. I should have cut all ties, walked away while I still had the chance. But I didn't. Instead, I went to work the next morning, pretending everything was normal. And that's when he called me into his office. I could hear my own heartbeat as I stepped inside. He was sitting at his desk, calm. Come. Close the door, he said. I obeyed. For a moment, he just looked at me, fingers steepled under his chin. Then he leaned back and let out a slow, measured breath. How long? My stomach dropped. There was no point in lying. A while. He nodded like he had already known the answer. I trusted you. Those 3 words hit harder than I expected. I had prepared for anger, for threats. But betrayal, that was something else. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just sat there, letting the weight of what I had done sink in. Then finally he spoke again. You're done here. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a discussion. I stood there for a moment waiting for something more. But there was nothing left to say. By the time I walked out of his office, my career was over. I didn't see her again after that. She tried to call but I didn't answer. Maybe I could have fought for her, but what would have been the point? In the end she went back to him. Or maybe she didn't. I never found out. All I knew was that I had lost everything for something that was never mine to begin with.